this as someone else who wrote it, but this is actually a revelation of how God sees you and has watched you. Psalms 139 says this, "Oh Lord, how you examine my heart. You know everything about me. You know when I sit down or I stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do." You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord? You go before me and follow me. I love that verse. Do you know you have a God who's in front of you and behind you? He's actually made a way for you, and then he's protecting you as you move through in your destiny. He's in front and behind. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It's too great for me to understand. I can never escape your spirit. Friend, you can never escape God's spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If I ride on the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there, out here in Malaysia, your hand will guide me. Your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night. But even in the darkness, I cannot hide for you. Why? Because to you, the night shines as bright as the day. Darkness and light are the same to you. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body, and you knit me together in my mother's womb. God formed you and fastened you. He was the one that created you. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous, how well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion and as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. Can I tell you something? Even before your parents knew you, God knew you. Some of you were like unexpected. Some of you were unplanned. God was the one who planned you. Can I tell you something? If you're here today and maybe you were adopted or maybe you didn't know your parents and maybe you weren't wanted, maybe he says those words, listen, you did not come from your parents. You came through your parents. You came from God. You were God's idea. Here's the good news. My little sister, who's now 25, she was adopted. And I tell her, here's the reality. Your mom would not have wanted you, but God wanted you so bad, he didn't care if the vessel cared. God wanted you on the earth so bad, he would use an unwilling vessel to bring you into the planet. You were God's idea, not your parents' idea. And you didn't come from your parents. You simply came through your parents. You're a son and a child of God. Get me excited. I gotta wait. We gotta save our energy for the Rev. You're just a rescued victim. But when you turn towards, you realize you're a redeemed victor. See, God didn't just save you from something. He saved you for something. You weren't just saved by grace. You were saved for good works. You weren't just saved from death. You were saved for life. You're not just living for eternity. You're actually living from eternity. There has to be the turning towards Jesus and then the proceeding to follow him. This is basic discipleship. I remember I grew up in a home of my wife. That would be weird. I was young. It was my mom. And she'd always say, Jedidiah, are you a disciple of Christ? I mean, you imagine growing up as a kid, 12 years old. You're a disciple? What does that mean? I don't even like the word. It's too close to discipline. Like, it's not like, no, I'm not. I don't know what that means. You know what? Can I make it super simple? If you want to be a disciple, just take the next step towards Jesus. Look at the disciples. They didn't have it all figured out. They're denying him. They're betraying him. They're getting rebuked by him. But you know what they just kept doing? Following. There's a crowd, right? And he says, hey, get in the boat. And guess what happened? The disciples are the ones who just continue to follow Jesus. They just continue to take the next step. In fact, when you look at the disciples, you know what their methodology was? Just follow him. They had no idea what was going to happen that day. They had no idea what it was going to look like. They didn't know. There wasn't like a plan. We got this miracle at 1 o'clock, and then Lazarus is coming in at 3:30. We got to make that appointment. No, they simply just said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to take the next step. I'm going to find where Jesus is, and I'm going to follow. I'm going to take the next step of faith, next step of obedience, next step of loving, next step. I'm just going to continue to take the next step towards Jesus. This is our journey. We have to have not just a decision. We have to have a conversion. That's what repent means. It means to turn away from and turn towards. Friend, many of you in here believe, but have you repented? When we pick up in this story with Jesus, I love this story because the Bible says Jesus said, get in the boat. Go to the, you know the story. So Jesus, get in the boat. So they're in this boat and they're in a storm. So wait a second, they're in the storm because they're following Jesus. How many times do we see people in a storm and we think it's because they're out of God's will? Oh, his family's sick? Must be sinning. Financial difficulty? You don't have faith. It's one thing to be the creator of your storm. It's the other thing to be led into a storm by the creator. Which means they're in, hear this, Can I just tell you something? For those of you in a storm, you don't have to raise your hand, but if you're in a storm, just because you're in a storm doesn't mean you're not in God's will. They're in a storm because they're following Jesus. Just because you're in a storm does not mean you're not in God's will. Just because you're in a prison doesn't mean you're not in God's promise. Just because you're in a pit doesn't mean you missed out on God's plan. Just because you're in a den doesn't mean that moment's not divine. Just because you can feel the fire doesn't mean you've lost God's favor. And just because it's difficult does not mean it's not destiny. Just because you're in a storm, come on somebody, does not mean you're not in God's will. They're in a